Hi and welcome to Beyond the Racing Line, the Formula 1 podcast by fans, for fans. It was a hot one in the desert. We saw drivers passing out nearly in what was, well, quite an epic race. We saw a new world champion crowned, three-time world champion Max Verstappen. We saw Aussie Oscar put on a performance for the weekend. And we saw plenty of other things. Tristan, how did you enjoy the Qatar weekend?
Yeah.
Across the whole board?
Gee, across the whole board. Pretty good. It was a roller coaster, that's for sure.
It was.
It really was. And it was hectic, as sprint weekends are.
Was it the best venue yet for a sprint weekend in terms of lifting the venue?
Ooh, jeez.
It's nearly a yes.
Yeah, it nearly is, isn't it?
Because, I mean, Qatar's an okay joint. It's an okay joint.
It's all right. Yeah.
And that's it. It's all right.
It's all right, yeah.
Sprint race weekend, I think, really improved it.
Yeah, I think, you're probably
They've
right.
nailed one.
You probably did. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Well done, F1. I think they've nailed one. So no, it was a roller coaster of emotions and events and all sorts of things. And
everything, yeah.
There was a lot happening. We're not going to cover it all. We're going to try.
There was a lot. Did you forget that F1 was going on? Because I went to bed Friday night and I thought,
weird timings here.
Yeah, I thought, okay, I can't stay up and watch practice one. I always tune to practice one because it was about, 2 o'clock in the morning. But then I forgot it was sprint weekend.
And so there was actually things to catch up on.
And so there was
ASAP.
qualifying. Yeah. So I woke up Saturday thinking, I'll have a look at what practice one delivered. And no, I was so angry at myself.
On a usual weekend,
the qualifying results.
On a usual weekend, we can get up and you can laze about and do things and watch practice when the right time comes, because you're only watching practice on a Saturday morning.
I know, but I spoiled qualifying for myself because I knew he was on pole.
Yeah.
I thought, no, I want to... Oh, yeah, anyway. Threw me.
It was a full weekend and unusual timings. We've got another sprint race weekend coming up in Austin.
Oh, back-to-back sprints.
Yeah.
Oh, River.
Yeah, so I'll be interested to see what Austin's like. I actually think Austin's quite a good racetrack. I think it will really suit a sprint race because...
You have to sprint where you can overtake.
Yeah, so I think that'll work. I think that'll work okay. But yeah, newly crowned world champion Max Verstappen.
3 times. Brilliant feat. Disappointing it happened on a sprint. Disappointing that we recognised it after the... no, we did recognise after sprint, didn't we? Because Oscar won the sprint. And then it was almost forgotten.
We've seen that happen
because
in the past.
Max was, and I thought, gee, I feel really bad. But anyway, world champions, obviously.
We've seen that happen in the past.
A better accolade than a sprint win.
The fact that it was happening so early in the season in a place like Qatar, I don't think it really mattered that it was in a sprint in the end, because
probably not.
The whole thing sort of turned into a bit of a non-event.
Yeah,
from about mid-season anyway.
Yeah,
and so then the fact that I mean, and that's not taking anything away from Max. Max has just turned into this confident driver that can take on situations and can deal with situations, can deal with his engineer actually being a little bit brutally honest to him, and it doesn't throw him. He doesn't get all mad back and start swearing back like he used to as a young kid.
Correct.
Even though he's still a young kid.
He is, yeah.
But yeah, so we're just seeing this really mature Max, and it's a Max that I am coming around to.
That's good.
Every race, I reckon, because he's relaxed. We will see the nasty Max in time, and part of me desperately wants to see that, because I think we get the best out of him sometimes when we are in that moment.
I think so too.
We get the worst out of him at times in that moment, which makes him the sports star that he is. You have to be wired that way. But it's not enough can be said for Max before we go any further. We've got all the goodies.
Yep.
We've got all the goodies today. And yeah, we'll get through as much as we can, but there's going to be something missed because it was a jam-packed weekend. Race ranking. I'm happy for it to be a weekend race weekend ranking.
7.
7? I go 7.5. I thoroughly enjoyed my weekend. I always enjoy Formula 1.
You always do, yeah.
But I'd go as far to give it an 8. But I'll stick with a 7.5. It's just every session was so watchable.
Do you think the track surface played a huge part in that?
Played a part.
Yep.
later.
I think it played an enormous part in the way the weekend
Yeah, they didn't know much about it for a little while, and then they're discovering it.
Kimmy, where'd we go? Kimmy in Portugal, when he went from 18th to first on the softs in 5 laps.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. Yeah, but not that I'm against that. I think it played a huge part.
In terms of the curbs and stuff, you're talking?
No, just the actual tarmac surface.
Yep.
It looked wet, didn't it?
No, just dirty.
I thought it looked wet. Yeah. Anyway.
Before we get into anything, though, opening question comes from Kingsley. Thank you, Kingsley. Haven't had one from Kingsley for a little while.
No.
I'm going to hijack his opening question a little bit, but it's around.
It's going to be a journey.
Father sons.
Yep.
All right. So, with the grand final over, and that's the AFL grand final.
Yep. Go past.
And Bathurst being ran and won. Can you name? How many offspring can you name of father-son combinations? And we've got so many. Now, I don't really want to bore the audience with this because most of our audience does not live in Australia where we live in.
Yep.
And so they don't really know much about Bathurst and AFL. But we've got this long tradition of, in the AFL, there's a father-son rule where if you play 100 games with a club, your son can be drafted in.
Yep.
When they become the right age to play football, and you can select them without having to go through the draft process.
Yeah, you just get them.
Yep, and so the draft is fairly similar to NFL sort of draft style thing. Not similar at all to EPL where you just buy the players that you want. There's a draft process so that the best talent goes to the teams that need the best talent and sort of works its way through that way depending on where you finish on the ladder.
Yep.
And so, there is this rule that allows you to go around that. And at the moment, we've seen 2 sons of an absolute champion of a team that I can't take. Hate them. Your team.
You don't hate them.
Oh, with passion. I hate them with passion.
I don't understand people that hate them.
But Dacos, the Dacos name is famous. So there's Peter Dacos as a father, and his 2 sons are coming through. One of his sons is an absolute gun, and the other one's quite underrated too.
They're both guns. Guns.
Yep. So that's a really obvious one. My team has had the Fletchers come through, where we've had really long-standing father-sons in there.
Almost played together.
Yeah, yep. The Herds. We've had the Watsons, and so it's one of my favourite rules in AFL footy where you get the sons in.
Yes, and Pies won the grand final, so Darcy Moore, who's the captain.
Sorry, I'm not interested in
his dad presented the cup to him. What a moment! Imagine getting the cup, imagine Max getting presented the championship trophy from his dad.
Oh, wouldn't surprise me if his dad punched someone to get the trophy.
I was going to say, the other side is Peter Moore was a really, really great player and a 5-time grand final runner-up, I guess. But anyway.
Yeah, didn't win one. It is a really cool one. In Bathurst, there's some father-sons in Bathurst.
Moffat. I don't know, I thought Bathurst was ordinary this year. I don't even know if Moffat raced or not. Moffat, I think Johnson has a son, I think.
I'm not.
Perkins, Larry Perkins' son used to race. I don't know if...
I'm not as across supercars. I'll watch a bit of Bathurst.
There's not a lot. Look, with Bathurst, just the thing about Bathurst weekends, for those that don't watch it or are fans of it, it's
an endurance race.
Yeah, you only need to watch the first hour. You get through the first hour, you can catch maybe 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock, which is about quarter of the way through. You can catch about an hour of that, and then all you need is the last half an hour. That's all you need. And you have pretty much seen everything for Bathurst.
Generally, the best way to do it is you have it on and do things.
Yes, it's like cricket. It's like cricket. You leave it on the background. When there's a wicket, you're excited. When there's a crash, you're excited, and that's it. So
I have had weekends where I've watched the whole thing, but
it was crap this year.
It wasn't this one.
Nah, I thought it was crap.
Yeah, but So what the question I want to take it to, and Kingsley's got a slightly different question, which we can get to.
That's fine. It's our show.
What's the best father-son combination in Formula One?
All right, so we thought about this because there's not a lot.
There isn't a lot.
There's not a lot.
I really feel like we're missing.
I don't. So we've got the Hills.
Yep.
We've got the Hills, Rosbergs,
Verstappens,
PKs, Schumachers.
I'm fairly sure.
Magnussen's? I don't think one raced F1.
don't know.
I don't think so. I think it was endurance. Actually, I've just drawn a blank there with that. That's poor form me. I can't think of anything else. Can you really think of anyone else? Bruno Senna was Ayrton Senna's nephew, not his son. So, like, the family ties are there. Mm-hmm. Bruno sucked anyway, so... Just rack your brain for a second.
I can't... I just feel like we're missing someone. Someone's going to be yelling at us, I reckon. But out of those, what's the best combo? Because here we've seen really... weighted to one side, haven't we? So there's, like, if we think about Schumacher, obviously the greatest, one of the greatest,
but Mick not.
And Mick has gone to Haas, and it's looking like that's the end of Mick, and probably, I don't know, I feel like Mick needs another go. However, is that because his name's opening the door, which is getting to Kingsley's question a little bit in a minute?
Yep.
Probably the Hills. They were both world champions, were they not?
Well, I mean, that's what I was.
And so I think you have to end up that the Hills are the best father-son combo.
Yep.
Is that right?
You would have to be based on results alone, because I mean, like the point you raise is really, really, really valid. Like Dad was either a gun and son is not, or vice versa. Son is a gun.
Max
but
is
really,
one,
when you think about that kind of only really applies to Max, because Jos was not, like, he was an okay racer.
Well, he was a Formula 1 driver,
which is
great.
Much more than I've achieved in life.
Only just.
Yeah.
You're a Formula 1 podcaster.
Yeah, they're pretty on a par, aren't they? Mm. So then Max is a 3-time champion. I mean, Rosberg's, I don't know. Maybe the argument for Rosberg's is probably that maybe Keke and also Nico, both world champions.
Keke's before my time, but I believe he was fairly close to being a world champion, but I don't know.
Keke was a world champion.
He was a world champion?
Yeah, Keke Rosberg's world champion. So they're both world champions.
Oh, sorry, okay.
So maybe it is... Yeah, maybe it is the Rosbergs.
So who is it? Keke and Brittany?
Keke and Brittany,
yeah.
Both world champions. And I think maybe, you know what, I'd actually have to say Rosbergs, because they're both world champions, and they both had just killer teammates that they had to overcome as well. So for me, it would be the Rosbergs by a mile, actually. Yeah.
What about the Hills?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mean, I know quite a lot about Damon.
82 Keke won the world championship.
Yeah. Okay. I know a lot about Damon, but in terms of his dad, I don't know a huge amount. I don't know a huge amount about Graham.
See, I think Graham Hill was probably one of the greats, wasn't he?
Yeah, but Keke's also pretty handy too. PK is probably not in that argument. I mean, Nelson, yes, but then obviously is banned from the paddock due to racist comments, and then his son was heavily involved in Crashgate. So they're probably at the other end of the spectrum, and they're probably the worst example of father-son there. Who do you think? Let me hijack your question even further. Who do you think would be...
For me, it's Hill.
Okay, all right.
Graham Hill won 2 world championships.
Yep.
And obviously, Damon won a world championship.
Yep.
So that's one more than yours, so I win.
All right, good. So, who is a father-son that you would really like to see in the future?
In the future?
In the future.
So whose son do I want to see race?
Whose son do you want to see race? Whose son would you like to see be a world champion?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'd say the Doohans excites me. I mean, I know it's a different sport. Different sport, but one of the greatest motor racing could be 1-2s if Jack can get it together.
Well, science, if Carlos wins one, his dad's a world
champion. Yeah, well, that's true. Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
If you're thinking different categories.
Yeah, that's true. That's a crossover. Yep. What was your question? I've forgotten.
What is the future? Which father-son which father-son combination would you like to see in the future?
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to see Seb's son.
Yep.
Or actually Kimmy's son.
I was going to say Kimmy with Robin. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and that's probably the most likely because he is getting around very quickly on motorbikes and all sorts of karts and all sorts of things,
Seb's would be unreal. I think Seb's would be so emotional.
Should we actually get to Kingsley's actual question?
Yeah, I guess.
There was a massive preamble, and he told me that he had a few wines writing it.
No, but that's good.
It's wonderful. His question actually is, how much does genetics play in the role of bringing through the offspring? Is it the fact that genetics brings on excellence with excellent genetics?
Yep.
Or is it the fact that it opens doors
I think it opens doors.
100% opens doors. I mean, I just think, you've got those options. You can ring up people and say, hey, look, give him a go. He's having a crack. Can we see how it goes? And I think that's the way it runs. In Formula 1, that is. What about in footy?
Same. Yeah, I just think open source,
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some talent. There's certainly some talent there. But, geez, you've just got to go and work really hard.
Well, then that's it. Like, you think about our kids. Like, I'm not super talented sports-wise.
I am very talented.
But hopefully will be because he will be
forced
into doing it.
Yes.
Like if you think about the things that they learn off us, like he learns throwing a ball because I go out and throw the ball with him.
Yes, yep.
He's much better at it than I am.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
This is not difficult.
Yeah, so no, it's an interesting question and quite a long, serious opening question. But yeah, thank you, Kingsley. I enjoyed it.
It sets the tone for the app. I've noticed the opening question.
Does
Have
it?
you? If it's a stupid opening question, it's
Hey,
a
whoa,
very light-hearted. It's a very light-hearted app.
Oh yeah.
But if it's a very serious one, we'll see how the app unfolds. See what listeners think.
Race weekend. First notes were about time they got race lines and track limits sorted.
Good.
I thought they nailed it this weekend.
Yeah, I did too.
And it was annoying, and drivers found it annoying.
It's the boundary line.
I'm sure there were some fans that found it annoying.
Yes, they are.
They would have been complaining the other way earlier as well, but for me it felt like they finally got it right. It took them long enough.
Yep.
But all of a sudden, every time someone went off, they managed to nail it. And it got really tricky for them in something like a sprint race.
Yes, it did.
But they eventually got there.
Did you know Max was the only driver in Sunday's race to not trigger a track limit
Violation.
Violation.
Or anything.
Anything.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Can't tell me it can't be done.
Next, we're going to go through this slightly differently, to try and get through a few points.
Yeah.
Parking in the pit lane should be banned. So they got to the point where they're not allowed to park out on track and go around really slowly and create really slow gaps.
Yes.
Which I like that rule. I think that's a good rule.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be allowed to park at the end of pit lane, which they're not allowed to do now. They were told you can't do that anymore. So now they're parking midway down the pit lane.
Now, I raised this with you a couple of weekends ago, didn't I? Because there's a rule. You're not allowed to do your practice start from pit lane unless it's specified at a track. Because Lewis did it. Where did he do it? And I said to you straight away, I thought, you can't do that.
And it was specified at that track.
At that track, it fell under that specification. So you can't do it at the side. But I totally agree. If you're going to have a... Yeah.
No, so I'm not... So
if the light's green...
We saw...
Yeah, to build a gap. No, you can't do that.
We saw Russell midway down the pit lane, waiting, holding up those behind him.
No, if the light is green, you go.
So he was given the okay for that because he wasn't in the spot.
I agree with you. I'm not alright with that.
Yeah, I think they should have pinned him on that one. I wasn't overly happy with that one. So that needs to be the next one.
If you want to do something
once you leave the garage,
yep.
You are expected to go.
Yeah, if the light's green, go. If they want to do something, here's a real left field solution. We have this in Australia. You know, in Melbourne, when you go along the Monash Freeway and you get a 5-second green, yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow.
Yep.
That could be a really good solution, couldn't it? It's green, car goes, next car comes in, amber light, give them 5 seconds to build a gap, then go. So if you want a gap, that's fine. You can have a gap. I'm all for that. Because you don't want to see bunched up cars and then we're just being stupid out on track. But yeah, once the green light's on, you go. Yeah, I agree with you.
That is an out there solution.
It is an out there solution. It's a good solution though, isn't it? You're looking at me like, that's a bloody good idea, isn't it?
I don't know how much of a problem I have with it.
You've changed.
A fairly large one. No, look, that's the sort of idea, isn't it? It is the sort of idea.
It is.
Let's get on to... our man Oscar.
Let's talk about Oscar because he is a hero of the weekend.
He is
hero of the weekend.
Started the season. I want to start back at the start of the season. So
in Australia, where we DNF'd.
There was a pool. Well, there was, even before the season, there were teams really vying for his signature before he'd even been able to put any rubber down in a Formula 1 car. They were vying for his signature, and it got a little ugly. And there were some duds out there. A certain Mr. Shane Freer, who was calling for Mark Webber's head for getting it wrong about where he placed him as a manager. But the turnaround in this man's year, let alone just the fact that he is a rookie, it's just been unbelievable. His season has been unbelievable. To start how they started and to have to build his season up from there to the point where now he's regularly winning things or being on pole or being second or in a season where winning is very difficult.
Yeah.
He's one of the few people who've been able to do it this season, and he's a rookie that has had a car that has been competitive underneath him for only maybe half a season.
Yeah. See, look, I wouldn't even say turnaround for a season. We spoke end of last year, where would we expect him to be? And we named a handful of people that he really should be beating. I think it was with the exception of Albon that we said maybe he won't beat him, but he has. And credit to McLaren for also playing their part too. But I just see this as just a trajectory for him of growth.
There's still plenty to work on. I mean, for the first qualifying, because he'd only had the one practice session, Oscar's come out and said, look, I really like building my weekend. I like to build it up as I go. Yep. And he wasn't able to do that for the first qualifying. And he got caught out a little bit. He ended up qualifying for the race in 6th. He was going to get down to 4th, but then he'd broken some track limits and he went back a little bit. Not as far back as what his teammate did. But he wasn't able to build upon it. However, we saw in the next qualifying session that he got his hands on. Yep. He'd learnt by then. So he built up his weekend so that he'd learnt by that point, right, this is where I can push a bit harder. Yep. This is how I make it happen. And that is just such a really fantastic method to go about your race weekend. There's no point in being the fastest on a Friday. Yep. Once you're a seasoned individual with 10 seasons under your belt, you can go for those sorts of things. Yep. But there's absolutely no need for him to be there then. So he knows when to go. He's just got that such mature head on him.
Do you know who does that?
That allows him to work his way through.
Lewis does that.
Yeah. He always has.
Yep.
And that was one of the big differences, wasn't it? Seb used to like winning every session.
Just bang, which is Max all over.
Likes winning every session. Whereas Oscar at the moment builds up, and off he goes. The last thing he needs to do is just continue to learn that time management.
Absolutely. He'll be
and
right.
We've seen improvements already this season. We saw it on the weekend, a huge improvement on where he's been. Yep. But I tell you what, once he's got that under control, there is nothing stopping him.
If you tuned in for the first time and you saw Oscar and someone said, how many years has this kid been in Formula One? Your answer would not be 17 rounds.
Yep.
No, it really wouldn't be.
No, I'm with you.
Here are his last 8 results.
Yep.
Yeah. So 4th, 5th, retired in Belgium, unfortunately. 9th, 12th, 7-3-2.
It's impressive, isn't it?
That's tidy. So, and obviously, impressive. Again, McLaren play a huge part in that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Do you feel for Lando that he's been at McLaren for so long? Dan comes in, Australian, gets the win. Oscar comes in, Australian. Yes, it was a sprint race, but still gets a win.
Yeah, I actually do feel for him.
Because, you have to. You really have to.
Because he's been really consistent through all of that time.
Yeah, that's a real punch in the guts to watch your two teammates roll in and both win.
And I don't think he's the sort, from what I can tell, like they get a little spicy and so they should, but I don't think he's the sort of teammate that sort of wishes ill upon his teammate. There's certain teammates that just love flogging their teammates, and I'm sure he'd like to be on top, but he wants the best for the team, and so, it has been a bit of
he has to. I feel like this episode, we're going to bounce all over this episode, which is great, which is good. I feel like Lando really needs to stop being so negative on himself. So I don't know if you watched his post-race after the sprint. There's
on the radio.
Just in front of the camera, and I think he would go back and regret some of the things he said. Because even, I don't know, there wasn't a lot of glowing praise for Oscar, which is fine. Like, you don't have to pump your teammate up. But it was just like, I guess it's good. And you could see it hurt him to watch his teammate win. But I guess there's the difference between him and Charles. Charles is critical of himself, but Lando is very negative of himself. And I think that's worse.
We've talked about mindset with Lando before.
Yes.
And this is if Oscar still needs to learn time management, Lando needs to and maybe it's just the way he comes across, but he needs to think about mindset.
Yes.
And that's the area that he needs to make his improvements in, because he can be really critical, but it seems to self-perpetuate sometimes. And so if he's feeling critical on himself, then the weekend falls away a little bit. However, we did see him, like, he still managed to push through. Yeah. And so you sort of don't see evidence that things completely fall away on him. So I wonder whether it's just the way that he talks, but he's actually got the ability to to manage it himself.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. I am with you.
Yep.
But no, I feel really sorry for him. Rookie hour at the post qualifying interview with Naomi Shifter.
Yep.
So it was for qualifying. We saw Lando sitting at the grid. At the podium, at the bottom of the podium.
Yep.
And then he was told to shift off because he'd broken track limits and gone to 10th. Didn't actually set a lap.
Yep.
Then we saw Oscar come on in.
Yep.
Oscar does his interview.
Yeah.
Naomi doesn't know why Oscar's there.
Yeah.
And then Oscar does his interview.
Yeah.
And Naomi finds out at the end of the interview.
Literally flashes on the screen.
And tells Oscar, and he's like, oh, well, wish they had have told me that before.
How fantastic was Oscar's response to that situation?
The maturity, yep.
But then after the sprint, for him to say, I'm just going to give the FIA 5 minutes to double check that I actually have won.
It was
Love
very
it.
good.
He's got a real, I feel like he's funny.
Yes.
But he's got a real ice cold humor about him.
And that's the comment has been, is that there is the funny boy in there, the funny man's in there, but he is managing his career perfectly at the moment.
Absolutely.
Until he becomes something.
And then he can
start unleashing. But I just thought it was rookie hour, not from Naomi.
No.
From the producer. No. Come on, get in here. If we know in Australia that time's been taken off Lando, the producer has to be talking to Naomi.
See, I put it more
and
on
making it happen.
I put it more on F1. Like, if you still need some time, right, to enforce track limits, you shouldn't. Like,
look, I can understand. If there's lots of cars going around and you've got to check everything.
But if you need some time, just go, right, hang on. We're going to delay the podium for 5 minutes.
Yep.
We've just finished the session. Weigh yourself, cool down. Just go and do something. Like, it doesn't
hang about. The cameras will catch you.
We'll go to an ad break. We'll do something. We'll give you a minute to collect your thoughts, and we'll get the weigh-in done a little bit slower. Weigh the cars, and then we will check them all, and we will call the top 3 in. Like, for a multi-billion-dollar sport and industry, you have to get that right. Imagine in the AFL Grand Final that Collingwood win by 4 points, and we're presenting the cup and the teams up there and the medals, and then we go, actually, hang on, goal review, that last goal was actually a point. So get off the dais, take the black and white ribbon off the cup, go and give it to Brisbane and hit the showers, you've actually lost.
Yep.
Like, there would be riots Australia-wide.
I've had wet dreams about Collingwood having the grand finals taken
That's
off.
never going to happen. Anyway, but that'd be your comparison there too. But yeah, I don't know. I don't put it on Naomi for that. I thought
I'm not putting on Naomi or
the producers. I look at that as an F1 issue.
No, well, look, if I know, the producers know, and therefore Naomi should know. And so she shouldn't be put in that situation. I just thought it was a bit rookie. But I'm with you. Formula One could be better on that as well.
Absolutely.
They could be better on that as well.
They could.
Let's go to a bit of a negative through qualifying.
Okay.
Stroll.
Oh, wow. This could be a triple episode. Where do you want to start?
All right, I'm gonna
because listeners know I'm gonna go to town on this.
I'll get started.
Go. I'm just gonna roll in here.
So Lance Stroll has had a bit of a rough time of it lately in the car. Hasn't been able to produce. Lots has been on the team. For some reason, his car breaks down more than Alonso's car, or has issues. My theory is sometimes they make up some excuses for him, but hey, there's no proof for that. However, he's had a lean trot of it lately, and so he hasn't been looking too good. Kicked out in Q1 of qualifying, which isn't unusual for him at the moment. His teammate gets through to Q3. There is such a difference with the pressure being laid on him. Gets out of the car, throws his $250,000 steering wheel.
Yep.
And then wanders to the back of the garage. His personal trainer is telling him, "Oh, look, mate, we've got to go and do the weigh-in. This is what we've got to do. Come on, you know what you got to do."
Doesn't do the weigh-in properly / at all.
Gives him a shove.
Yeah.
Gives the personal trainer a shove, and gives the interviews one-word answers.
Oh, pathetic.
One-word answers.
Pathetic. Oh, sure.
For me, look, I understand he's feeling frustrated and the world seems against him.
No.
But I tell you, the world isn't against the boy that was given an opportunity in the Formula One car because of billions of dollars. Lance, the world isn't against you. You are an incredibly rich guy living out everyone's dream that loves Formula One, And so you've got to come to that realisation sooner rather than later. And even though you're allowed to be frustrated, it looks so much worse because you are the person that's been given this opportunity. And it was just stunk of spoilt brat. Absolute petulance. It was disgusting behaviour. And I'm fuming at the FIA because they didn't come out and make a statement saying we don't condone that sort of behaviour.
So at the moment, he's under investigation.
Yeah, but...
He's under investigation, but they haven't been really clear as to what. As to what he's under investigation
Just come out and say, we don't condone that sort of behaviour, we're going to investigate.
Absolutely not good enough. As a driver, I don't care how frustrated you are. You can be angry and you can be frustrated. That is fine. But to get into... I mean, you can have a crash and throw a wheel. Like, we've seen that. That's fine. To get in the garage, to peg your wheel mid as your mechanic is going to take it out of your hands. Like, he physically tries to catch it. Pegs it out, scratches the car, throws the wheel, probably damage to the wheel as well. Gets out, shoves his trainer, doesn't go to the weighbridge. Bridge. There are so many men and women at the factory and so many people in that garage that live their livelihoods being part of the team, and so much work goes into putting him on track in a car doing his dream job, and just the absolute lack of respect and acknowledgement. And, can you imagine if Lance crashed and when he got back to the garage on the back of the motorbike and his trainer shoved him, like reverse the role, that he threw his helmet, or that, the trainer shoved Lance for having a crash. Like, the uproar because a mechanic or a trainer or a team personnel did that would be through the roof, and that person would be sacked on the spot. Felipe Drugovich is sitting on the sidelines ready to go and would relish and cherish and do anything to be in that position. I've said it week in, week out for the past 2 months in particular. This man, in absolutely no uncertain terms, has to go from this sport. Has to go. Like, literally, that is it. If last week wasn't a line in the sand, this week is. That is it. He is a waste of a seat.
I couldn't agree more.
He absolutely has to go.
You've spoken really beautifully around that.
Less than a third of the points have come from him. They were looking at second in the championship. I could care less that, Lawrence is your father and that, you are in the seat for that. I really, really could. If they're so serious about saying up front we want to be world champions, get serious about your two drivers, because right now they and probably Red Bull are the two teams that don't have a driver pairing, both pulling their weight. The difference is Red Bull have an all-time champion who will go down in this sport with one of the greatest legacies of all time, and Aston don't.
Oh.
So, it's just...
Oh, yeah. Look, and the fact that he's in a position of power, due to the fact that who he is and where he comes from, you cannot be pushing, as he would say, staff around. And so for Aston Martin, the fact that they haven't come out and said this is unacceptable, the fact that they haven't come out and said that, it's just that, for me, there has to be a boycott of their products. There has to be a boycott of their products, and I think it's just disgusting behaviour. And I really feel like I understand there's frustration, but you cannot be seen to be doing that.
No way. And you know what? The silence is deafening because it tells me that it is not being dealt with at Aston.
Yeah. It's not condoned. It's okay.
It's 7 Mark.
I'm a billionaire. I can push whoever I like.
Yep. It's Lewis and it's Nico all over. It is not being addressed.
Yep.
And that is one of the worst things you can do. Like, they get serious. Like, he has to go. It's just, there is no other way about it now. I don't care if he comes out and wins in Austin. I really don't. Like his time is up, officially.
Let's move on to some tyres.
Good.
Tyres really struck a chord throughout the whole weekend.
They did, yeah.
I can't remember the last time where tyres played such an important role in the Formula One happenings throughout the weekend. We saw in the sprint race, those who started on the softs had a real advantage. We saw lots of drivers jumping drivers at the start. We got a safety car even earlier, and it looked like, maybe these people who are started on the softs are going to get through here without too much deg because of the safety car. And then all of a sudden, the safety car comes in, they get racing, and those tyres dropped off dramatically, and we saw the mediums shine through in the end. However, we saw some drivers be able to deal with it and get through. George Russell was desperate to come in for fresh tyres because he knew he was a sitting duck, but he managed to hold on long enough in that sprint race. We saw the medium shine through for Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris and some other drivers. So it played a really vital role here. And then what we saw when we thought, well, maybe this is looking really good. What we saw was that, and then tyres played an even bigger role because they weren't up to the task, and we saw that that they put in place really dramatic rules to specify how many laps you're allowed to do on the tyres. We also saw that they actually brought in an extra practice session to see what the tyres were going to do on the curbs.
Little 10-minute burst session.
And so, yeah, it was just tyres really took a hold of this weekend.
Yep.
And it almost felt like it was a bit of a shit show with the tyres, with the Pirellis.
It became a mess.
However, it produced one of the best racing weekends that we've seen for quite some time.
Yep.
Well, one of the best weekends for this year, I would have thought. And probably one of the best sprint race weekends that we saw, due to the fact that the tyres were in this really weird window.
Really fragile too. I can't help but think the safety is so important too, and for them to recognise that the failure was so imminent that we needed another session to test it, that was probably a concern. And as I meant at the top of the episode, it was a real rollercoaster weekend because there were so many highs, but the lows were quite low.
We didn't... Usually, if it's a tyre-based weekend, we get a bit like, how boring.
Yep.
We want to see some racing, but what we actually saw, because the tyres were no good, we actually saw that flat-out racing.
Do you think because of
the mandated pit stops? And
it was so short and sharp, like it was 18, it was another 18, then I think we went to 16 or something like that, 18, 16.
Is this something they should be looking at into the future? It is such a slippery slope. This isn't me saying we should do it.
I don't know.
It's such a slippery slope to mandate an amount of laps.
Yeah, well, I liked it was different. You've got to feel for... it might force you to push them, because I think Lando's radio comments were really valid, where he said, look, if I know that I absolutely must be rid of them for 18, regardless of how long they can last, like if I can make a tyre last to 25, that's fine. There'll be a period of where I massage it in and bring it in slowly. But if I know I must have it in 18, then why am I bringing them in slowly? I'm just going to go hell for leather for 18 and I'm going to ditch them.
It was a different aspect, wasn't it?
It's got merits, but then are we losing that really good racecraft that we actually like? Because that can also have a variable on the result too.
Is racecraft as exciting as watching all-out racing?
Just depends on the type of fan you are. Some fans will say yes, some will say no.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I can't say it's more exciting. I love the intricacies around how they do that. I really do love it, but it's nowhere near as exciting as flat-out racing for the whole stint.
Yep.
And that was some really exciting racing. So it's something I think that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
I really do think it needs to be looked at. Not gone with. Investigate a little bit further, because this shit show of a weekend that saw Pirelli have to make these calls, which I thought they actually handled it okay. But it was it brought about a situation that, well, maybe we're missing out on something, because every race this year, come lap 7, 8, 9, everyone's in time management mode at that point. So you'll notice that over the time that you're racing, the start's really exciting, and then we go into a lull after about that time, because everyone has to get into time management mode, and it just dies off. And there's something to being able to race the whole time, because you've got to race the whole time. And I just think, maybe that's something we look at. Maybe we don't need the hard softs and mediums. Maybe we just need mandatory tyres lengths. And that could be interesting.
Pirelli have been confirmed as tyre supplier until 2027.
Yep, there have been problems with that. Anything?
No, not really. I read that Bridgestone's application was actually quite good.
Yep.
Really nearly pushed the mark to overtake Pirelli and regain the actual rights to have that. And part of their presentation was a 20% recycled material, which was important for their road tyres, and then having 63% of its components recycled, and that they are lighter to ship as well. So that was huge, knowing that F1 wants to get to net zero by 2030. to actually bring the sustainability side to the actual tyres. They nearly got across the line, but
one of the things they're investigating is making tyres smaller again.
Oh, look at that.
Who would have thought?
Maybe we could also not bother with any wet compound.
Next thought. This is a thoughts podcast, isn't it?
I told you. The opening question dictates the way the podcast goes.
Next thought. Can Perez get anything right?
Oh, good.
Now, he had a really interesting weekend. Because he got himself into a situation in the sprint race. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't.
Generally wasn't.
However, he shouldn't have qualified in that position.
Nope.
To mean that he was in that pack.
Yep.
To be in a situation where he could be in a situation where it wasn't his fault.
Absolutely
And
correct.
that's the knock on Perez again. He's in that situation to allow for something to happen again. Yep. This is my crux of there's no such thing as luck in racing, because you shouldn't be in that situation to get the bad luck.
So Q1 for qualifying, these are the people that were in and around his area. So we did a 25.991. Hulkenberg did a 25.904 in a Haas. Just let that sink in for a minute, yeah?
Yep.
You've also got Gasly that did a 29.5, and then you've also got Valtteri, which was right on the cusp of a 26.0. So to be in the mix of those when your teammate, a 25 flat, well, 07, 25, that's almost 2 seconds. That's almost 2 seconds in Q1, just obliterated. So, and I mean, made it through Q1, that's fine. But you're right, it goes to that point, you should never have even bothered to be in that position in qualifying in the first place. And then you look at Q2, for example, right? So
I think it was only 1 second.
25.9.
Q1. Q1,
sorry,
1 second, yep.
Yeah. But then if you look at that, you look at 25.4 for Q2. But then again, Sainz, 25.3.
Well, you go back to Verstappen, another second.
Yeah, Albon, 25.7. Hulkenberg, 25.7. That's not far off. And I know the field's close, but a Red Bull should be nowhere near a Williams and a Haas, other than when it's lapping it. That's as close as it should get.
Sorry.
So anyway,
just spraying mosquitoes.
Hideous.
I'm with you.
It's just
I'm with you. And like I say, being in that situation meant that he was in the pack, which meant that there was an opportunity for him to be on the wrong side of the corner. It wasn't his fault, but then crashed out, and then there was damage caused, and then that meant that his race was then hampered because then he had to start from the pit lane, and it just has this magnifying effect. At the moment, is there anything that he can do? Because he then joined the race from the pit lane. He was in a very similar situation to George Russell. After George Russell had an issue, which we'll talk about in a moment, with Hamilton crashing into him. And we saw George Russell drive his way through to, where did George finish up? 4th, was it?
Yeah, I think it was, yep.
And it was a spectacular drive. I'll give him that. It was a spectacular drive.
Yep.
However, we saw Perez finish in 10th, and then he had 10-second penalties applied.
Yep.
He is just so far off it. And then we saw Horner getting critical with the media, saying, I know you think we're being critical. And he's saying, well, you are. No, they're not. They're just stating the facts. They've got to talk like this. You can't go on the defensive saying, oh, the poor Perez, the media's being mean to him. We love Perez. We think he's a great guy. Yeah. However, he is performing dreadfully, absolutely dreadfully. It's amazing they've stuck with him so long, considering the history they've had. And it just, once again, I think it just absolutely spells everything about where they think Yuki Tsunoda is.
So if George was 4th, I'll tell you what, Perez would have breathed the biggest sigh of relief knowing that Lewis DNF'd on the first lap. 6th time in history. Did you know that? 6th time he has ever DNF'd on the first lap. For Lewis.
Yeah, there you go.
It's incredible. 6 out of however many races he has done, which is a lot. I haven't got it in front of me, sorry. So, if George finishes 4th, really Lewis finishes 4th, yeah? You think about that. Lewis would have beaten George this weekend had he stayed on track.
Is this for me? I think they finished 2-3.
Okay, so you think they beat the McLaren?
Probably.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Unknown.
Probably.
Let's say 4th at worst, right? Mm. So if Lewis finishes 4th, we know that Perez's big thing is he must in air quotes, must finish 2nd in the constructor. So if Lewis finishes 4th, It's a 12-point swing, and he's 18 points behind him.
Yeah.
And it is just, it's there for the taking.
Yep.
It really is.
Yep.
But I think Lewis, on the other hand, Checo scored a point.
Yep.
So that's also, geez, he is right on the edge. He is really just walking a tightrope.
10-second penalties for track limits while going not very fast. There's got to be some questions asked there, doesn't there?
Paul, yep.
There's got to be some more questions asked. And I mean, the pressure is absolutely mounting on him, and it should be mounting on him. I find it bizarre, the change in this Red Bull team where they would sack a rookie.
Gasly, I was so against Gasly being sacked.
I know you were, yep. And it just seems like he's just another victim to the Max Verstappen, the Super Max.
Do you think it's complacency to just be fully aware that I will be second and you won't have any trouble from me?
What do you mean?
Like could he have come to that deal with the team that I will be second? Like I won't get in your way, I won't get in Max's way.
Oh, Perez. Well, he's not second. That's the problem.
No, he will play second driver to him.
Yeah, but he's not. He can't. He can play second driver to him. Max doesn't need a second driver at the moment.
He doesn't, does he?
The question is in future. Yep. With McLaren's making the improvements they're making, and they were on it.
You're going to
Mercedes
need someone
were
else
on it this weekend.
Yep.
We didn't see that, but they were on it this weekend.
Yep.
At some stage, he's going to need a rear gunner.
Yes,
and Red Bull more. You know what? Max doesn't need a rear gunner.
No, he will. At some stage, they will come to him, and he needs someone there.
Maybe. I don't think Max needs anything. He's
no.
In a level of his own, but we did say that about Lewis for a long time.
Yeah.
But at some stage, Red Bull's going to need someone scoring better points.
Valtteri played a huge role with Lewis too.
Yep.
Lewis was at the top of his game a couple of years ago, and although he didn't need Valtteri, he had him.
Yep.
So the insurance policy was there.
Perez makes Valtteri look very good at the moment, doesn't he?
Absolutely. So
so it's not fun to watch because I mean Perez is a great guy. He's very popular amongst the field, but it's just it's getting worse and worse. What's your prediction with these guys before we move on?
What do you mean prediction?
What is going to happen? What are they going to do? What are Red Bull going to do?
He'll be gone mid-season.
Next season?
Mid-season.
Next season you're talking?
Yep, round 6.
Is he definitely going to start the season? If he continues...
There's no assurance.
If he continues to finish this season the way he's been going in the last 10 rounds, does Perez start next season?
No.
No, I don't think he does either. I actually think he turns it around between now and then. But I don't think he starts next season if that's the case either. And I think they've played the Daniel Ricciardo hand really well at the moment. I'll give him credit for this because there has been no rushing to get him back.
Yep.
And it's worked out beautifully because that AlphaTauri was crap this weekend. I think Ricciardo might have got more out of it.
Maybe.
But it wasn't a good car. So I think they knew that was maybe the case.
Yep.
And they're already thinking, right, let's have a confident Ricciardo that isn't driving with a hamper of a hand being broken.
Yep.
Let's hold him off and we'll get him back when he's up and about. He loves America. When he's up and about, we're going to get him back and build him up from there because the last thing we need is the guy that we think is replacing Perez to be in a bit of a crisis because his hand's not quite right. And Yuki Tsunoda is nowhere near where we need him to be.
Is Dan back Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. He's back Saturday.
No, he's not.
So I've had a hankering for Coronas, okay? So, and it's not this Saturday, it's the Saturday after.
It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, and there is no word of that he is fully confirmed back.
It's not racing this weekend.
No.
It's the weekend after.
Oh, it's the weekend after, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So, no, it's just...
So anyway, so I like Coronas, and would you mind bringing some lemon as well, please?
He's not back. Have you ever had it with a cherry?
No. Anyway, Coronas, and I don't usually drink Coronas, but I've had a hankering for them lately. Someone brought them up, and I now want some Coronas,
fine.
so yeah.
He's not back.
I look forward to it.
He will not be back. No.
Coronas, thanks.
He will not be back.
Let's talk Lewis and...
George.
Who's
at fault?
Lewis.
Yeah.
Lewis is at fault, but it's a racing incident at fault. He should have given more room.
It's a racing incident that was caused by Lewis.
Yeah. He should have given more room considering he was his teammate.
Yep.
It was a bit of a funny one for Lewis. I wouldn't expect him to do something like that. It cost them big time.
It did.
was exactly what George needed, though,
Yeah, it did.
because he's been under the pump with Lewis a little bit lately.
Yep.
And so it meant that Lewis wasn't scoring points. Lewis made the mistake. And then George had this fantastic recovery drive.
Just had a free shot, didn't he?
It was a fantastic recovery drive. I mean, that car looked really good. It was a strong drive.
When you have a lap 1 incident, the best thing for you is to have your incident sustain minimal damage.
Yes. Yep.
But then receive a safety car ASAP.
Yes.
And then you're back in it.
Well,
it's sigh of relief.
If you've got a good car, you're back in it.
Because really, it's the field, it's the length of 18 cars or whatever. That's all you catch.
If you're Sergio Perez, you're out.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So no, it was. And how do you feel the team handled the situation?
Yeah, fine. Fine. That's fine.
I can always understand hot-headed drivers. That's fine. In the moment, hot-headed drivers is fine.
Yeah.
I liked that Lewis came out, took ownership of it once he saw it. He's like, because he was a bit aggressive.
Yeah, taken out by a teammate.
Yep. But once he saw it, change of tune, went to the media, said, well, no, look, that was my fault.
Yep.
Went and apologised. I thought he handled it quite beautifully.
Yep.
For all the knockers out there,
my
dad included on Lewis, you got to give him credit for that because I thought it was a good turnaround. It's hard to turn around on those things.
It's the exact opposite of what the Alpine boys did when they were asked pre-weekend about the goings-on of the swap, and then the responses that they were clearly told to give by their media managers was, it's been handled internally and it's all good. Like, that wasn't a response to the question. So that was, and you get other drivers that go and they have their incident, they get back, and it's the old throwaway line, I'm going to have a look at it. Just own it.
What were your thoughts on Toto?
Yep.
Getting communications into his house because he can't be there because of his knee operation.
I'm aware of that's been happening for a very long time.
Well, yeah. So he was out for the last race, and then he was expecting to be back. For this race, it was decided, let's leave you there and we'll give you communications.
Yep.
Does it say more about him or the team that he needs to get onto the radio to George mid-race from his home?
That's a good question.
Does it show confidence in your team that you've got this in control where you have to be speaking on the radio to calm George down?
It's that real authoritative, parent sort of thing, isn't it?
That's what it seemed like.
That's what it is. But I'm okay with that because you've got your team who are telling you. You've got your family who are telling you. Your brothers and sisters and your mum or dad, either one. One parent and your brothers and sisters were saying, "Don't do that.
Just calm down. You'll be okay.
Don't throw that rock at that window.
Yep.
It's going to be okay." And then you've got grandma or grandpa that come over and they go, "Don't even think about it," and you are given a rocket and you go, "Okay, no, now I won't," because I've been given a spray.
And they were reassuring. Okay. They were reassuring words in a very firm way.
In a firm way, but which is absolutely, you need that sometimes. And sometimes when your driver is, and I'm all for drivers having ownership of the strategies and what they do. Like science shows that works really well. Leclerc has on occasion. So was Max. So was Seb, so was Lewis, but then when you've got someone like George who probably lacks that experience of being aware
because he was in crisis mode.
Strategy.
He was in crisis mode where he thought, "Oh, hang on, am I at fault for that one? Did I cause that accident?" All of a sudden, we've gone from second and third, and we're at the back of the grid, and one of our drivers are out. Have I just caused an absolute catastrophe for this team?
Yeah.
And so there was some reassuring going on, but it didn't seem to be working. And then as soon as Toto got on, it seemed to be like, George, just get on with it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of what he needed to hear. I wonder how undermining it was for the team to require him to get on the radio.
He might have been asked as well. You never know.
I think Toto does what he wants. In a way, it doesn't really matter because it's Toto's team anyway. That team doesn't really exist without Toto. I don't think. I think he's everything to that team. But yeah, it was a funny one. It was a really interesting one to see. The Ferrari boys, it was just a bit of a quiet nothing weekend. We didn't even see Sainz start the main race because they spotted a fuel leak only minutes before going out onto the grid.
Felt for him.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. You feel for him, but I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, but it was a bit of a funny one. They've gone from having that speed that sort of popped up in Monza, and then continued on in Singapore, and we were hoping to see a little bit more, and then it's sort of just gone back into being a little bit irrelevant again, which I think was a bit of a shame. Alonso, fairly decent race. He's had was it the last one where he had a bit of a scrappy race?
Yeah, and it was back on it this weekend. And then his mistake, while it looked at first glance it didn't cost him a lot, it really did, didn't it?
What was his mistake?
We went wide through turn 7, and then it usually a mistake like that you'd sort of think, you've dropped a few points, but that's it.
Did he get a penalty for coming back on track?
Not that
he was being investigated, but I don't think I ever saw a result.
Even I have to fully admit that was hectic the way he came back.
Oh yeah, that should have been a penalty.
It was hectic.
I don't know whether did he give the place up?
I don't know. It wouldn't have mattered. He came straight out, full beans on the racing line in front of the clerk.
I can't believe you were willing to admit that.
No, I have to. That was even I was hard in mouth. Like, oh my god, what are you doing?
Come a long way.
What are you doing? Yeah.
I want to quickly before you move on.
Lewis did receive $50,000 fine for walking across the track.
Good. Suspended, I imagine.
Probably paid up front. He probably had loose change in his pocket.
We can talk about others. I want to talk about the revival of the Alfa Romeo. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Alfa Romeos.
Revival?
They've been in no man's land for a long time.
They still are.
Have a look at where they finished.
I saw where they finished.
They had a decent strategy, but updates came, and they haven't been able to get these updates to switch on. Yeah. They felt like this was due to a better understanding of the car, and so I want to have a little watch on these guys, because all of a sudden these guys were at real risk of just dwindling out of the season. Yeah, okay. I want to see what happens next, because if they've got a good understanding, it should be good at the United States. It should be good at the United States after being good here. That should correlate on a little bit, because they've brought some pretty big updates. Haas is bringing big updates. So all of a sudden, we've got this little competition at the back of the field. Who can finish the season the best? Because Haas is bringing their .2 car to the United States. So that's the last thing I want to sort of mention is
you've caught me off guard there.
We've seen a little bit. I want to see what happens next. Anyone else you want to mention?
No.
Rightio. Let's get into the All Signs 2, 3, and 1. That was a very different race review, wasn't it?
I told you.
There was a lot on.
I think we covered everything.
Thanks to All Signs 3, 2, and 1. That is awesome for all your signage needs. Hit up All Signs. You can find them online on Facebook, on all those wonderful things. Yep. Your 3 points are going to Oscar.
Yes, correct.
And my 3 points are going to Oscar. I'm going to guess your next ones, but you're probably going to get this wrong, I'd say.
Okay.
2 points has to go to George, and there is no arguments about it. There's an argument, isn't there?
No.
You're not going to get George?
No, not at all.
I thought George's weekend was great, but his race in particular was magnificent. Knocked back the first corner, no fault of his own, and then he drives his way back through the field to finish in 4th position. That is a stellar effort. I don't know what you've been doing if you don't think he's at least worthy of 2 points. No. Who's your 2 points?
Max.
Yeah, Max is pretty good too, wasn't he?
He tied up his 3rd world title.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yep.
I'll give him that. So George gets 1 then from you, does he?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
He doesn't.
You're an absolute buffoon.
Now, Fernando gets 1 for dragging the Aston back in and just showing that it actually has pace in that and had a really good weekend, minus the...
Why wouldn't George get a point? That is a ridiculous call.
Because it's the same way in that 4 years ago, when the Mercedes goes... a lap down, and you know it will win.
Yeah, but
by a minute. There is no way.
He's a direct opponent.
But the distance that he had to cover was the length of the field. So he didn't make up gaps and work his way back through across, say, a spread field. It was literally the starting grid was his distance to catch.
He's a direct opponent of the guy you gave the points to.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Lost it.
No, that's fine.
1 to Alonso. All right. By 1, so 3 to Oscar, two clearly,
absolutely
clearly George, and I'll give one to Max because
one third world title.
He did do that little
pretty handy.
He did that little thing
Weekend, isn't it? Yeah.
Where you do that. Well done. Dud of the day.
Dud of the day. I won't give it to Stroll because we had a whole segment on him, so I won't waste any more time on that one. Dud of the day goes to another group of social media fans.
Oh, oh, interesting.
And there are a few out there. Not a lot, but there's a few that caught my attention this week. Who have been comparing Lewis's incident with his incident in Silverstone against Max, and crying foul that why was Qatar Lewis's fault when Silverstone was clearly Max's fault when he put himself in the barrier in 2021.
Well, it wasn't Max's fault.
No, it wasn't. But a lot of fans that are saying that, well, that's ridiculous. Like, you know, Lewis was at fault in Silverstone. Why was it not Max's fault? Because it's the same move. And they weren't. They couldn't be polar opposites apart.
I haven't seen this movement, luckily, because it would have annoyed me.
I've seen it. It's annoyed the hell out of me in the last 24 hours. So if you're a social media fan who has been on posting photos of Silverstone 21 and comparing it to Qatar a handful of days ago and saying that Max is at fault at Silverstone because Lewis is at fault at Qatar, I suggest you find another sport to follow.
3 cars to 1. 3 cars to 2, sorry. And then he was found at fault anyway.
Yeah.
Lewis.
Anyway, wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong. Frustrated me.
Yeah.
Just keyboard warriors. Just, yeah.
My dad of the day has to be F1 for deciding...
Just the entire sport.
Well, their calendar, for deciding that being in the desert in the middle of October was ever going to be a good idea. They haven't been there before for this reason, and luckily next year they're not going to be back there for this reason. I think it had something to do with the World Cup, because we didn't race there last year.
No.
And I don't really understand how that means that now that the World Cup's over that you have to go earlier, but maybe it's to do with a contract that happened last year, I don't know. But I'm all for driving in really harsh conditions, and I'm thinking more cold conditions. Formula 1 cars don't like being cold.
I'm thinking harsh is in a technically challenging circuit.
Yep.
With a lot that you have to do behind the wheel.
Absolutely,
not
but there is very little that Formula 1 can do for overheating drivers, and that was exactly what was happening to a lot of them. We saw Logan Sargent, who was actually, he had a bug, but he had to pull out. I can't remember the last time we've had someone had to stop racing for a medical issue like that.
And that's a concern.
We saw Albon, we saw Stroll, we saw
exhausted, we saw Piastri. Stroll apparently pulled up in the ambulance.
Yep, and so
Ocon vomited in lap 15.
Lots of drivers were off in the medical centre getting extra hydration. So there's 2 things here. We shouldn't be racing in these conditions. And you can't predict the weather. Yep. You can't predict the weather, but you can in a desert, you can actually predict the weather.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's hot, but it's predictively really hot at certain times of the year.
Yeah.
And so you can actually predict the weather in Silverstone. You can't predict when it's going to rain at certain places around the world, but that's not in Silverstone, at Qatar. But yeah, so you can certainly make sure you know these things.
Yep.
But I think there's a bigger issue that's sort of come up here is... Let's get a little bit more serious about hydrating these drivers. We came up with the idea that, you know what, maybe it's not healthy for them to be so light a few years ago, and so they changed that rule.
Yep.
And that was a really good rule. I thought that was a really sensible rule. If everyone's not unhealthily underweight, then it shouldn't be an advantage to anyone, and it should be good for Formula 1. Let's get serious about hydrating these drivers and cooling these drivers. Okay, because this is supposed to be a category. It's supposed to be hard work. This is supposed to be hard work. I'm down with that. But there should be a mandatory amount of water in a drink bottle that is kept cool. There should be a mandatory airflow into the helmet to cool down these drivers. I think there needs to be some sort of method used at taking the welfare of these drivers, because it wasn't far off some of these drivers passing out, and we could have seen a really, really horrendous crash, because these drivers, most of them aren't going to pull out And I think only because Sargent was crooking the weekend that he actually pulled out. No one else would have pulled out, and we could have got to a situation where someone had a big crash because they passed out. And so, yeah, done of the day, to the calendar, you've got to, and we've got to start taking the driver's well-being a little bit more seriously in this aspect.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And the comments around they're the best drivers in the world, they should still not be subjected to this kind of condition.
Oh, yeah, no. And they are the best drivers in the world, and they do a fantastic job. And I think we actually saw, like, the strength of some drivers. I thought that was really clear, the strength of some drivers.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just a bit too far.
Time to take a back pedal on a bit of desert racing, do you think?
No,
knowing that there's such high-quality circuits around the world.
You know what?
Available.
I really love our calendar in general because I love the variation of it.
I do like the variation.
I love that we can be in Singapore in the middle of a high-tech, modern-day city one weekend.
Yep.
And not long after, we can be in the middle of the desert dealing with sand coming up from the track. And I love the fact that we can be in Monaco on this ridiculous track that doesn't fit the cars anymore.
Yeah.
I like the variation. That keeps it really interesting. I just think there's things we can be doing. I mean, God, hydration isn't anything new. These cars are incredibly high tech, so let's actually show off on how we can hydrate the drivers.
Did you know the circuit was unfinished as well? Did you notice that?
It was unfinished. Tell me more.
The paintwork and the extended curb areas. Do you notice they were all just bitumen and line work?
I just thought they didn't care.
No, it's very much unfinished. So.
Okay. Yep. Well, because it was rebuilt and relaid, wasn't it, after the World Cup? Because the World Cup had a venue there or something.
Something like that. I'm not sure. Don't know about that.
F1.5.
F1.5, the greatest championship in the world. Now that Max has tied up F1. This is
the only one to worry about.
This is the only one to worry about. It kind of has been the only one to worry about for
most of the season.
I'd say
most of the last few seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. You know what I'm going to do this week, just for you?
Put them in order?
Exactly what I do every week. I'm going to do random order, and then you're going to work it out too. All right, let's look at, for those that haven't been... Look, if you haven't been following along by now, like, far out.
And people are unfollowing because of this lack of order.
They're not.
They are. There is anger.
Yeah, you're way too late to the party. All right, Formula A, Formula AT, whatever you want to call it. The De Vries, the Dan, the Lawson category. Yeah?
So this is the replacement.
The replacement.
Slash.
AlphaTauri League.
Yeah.
So no change because Lawson DNF. So, yeah. Lawson
DNF? Or did he finish?
No, didn't finish. DNF'd.
Oh.
DNF. So no change there. De Vries 35, Lawson 40, because he took the lead, remember, plus 10 the other week. So Lawson 40, De Vries 35, Dan on 12.
Do they get points for sprint races?
No, you do not.
You are a bad man.
Because I hate sprints.
No, you don't.
I do.
This one was good.
Yeah, well, I hated it though. So, yeah, and that's what that category is. Formula 1.75, which is your Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Sargent. Once again, as usual, no real sort of movement there. +4 for Hulk, takes him to 80. +2 for Mag, which is 74. And Sargent just flapping about in the wind with 54 points there. So, again, not a lot there. You'd have to be a pretty boring type individual to sort of be grasping at that one, wouldn't you? Like, if you're tuning in to be really, like, ooh, F1.75. You're probably just having butter on your toast in the morning, aren't you?
I think there's going to be some interest in it.
I don't.
With the hat and the... Yeah.
I don't.
I'll be interested to see if it makes any difference to these.
You'd be the type of person that has,
Haas... We're going to see a little race between Haas and the Alfa Romeos at the end of the season.
It's your real vanilla sort of league, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like it's vanilla ice cream. It's it's nothing. It's mid-strength.
Yep.
That's lights. It's light beer. Yeah, it's just all right, let's look at the other league, the big one, F1.5. I'm just going to throw some numbers at you, and then I'll revise it for you this week. So listen, just be excited, and then I'll revise it for you. Alrighty. And for those listening along, there'll be some people who can work this out as we go. All right, Piastri. Awesome work. Second place. Win, actually, for Piastri. Sorry, a win for Piastri. So first win in F1.5.
You beauty.
Which is really good.
Celebrate.
So two wins, isn't it? Piastri 188. Zhou 127. And Valtteri 139. Alex sort of lower end of the pack on 175. Yuki definitely right down the bottom. Bit of a battle with Yuki and Zhou. 121 for Yuki, with Zhou 127. Then you've got Ocon tied with Piastri on 188. You've got Gasly on 216, and you've got Lando on 283. So your top three look like
Puts
this.
Piastri in third.
It does. It puts Oscar in third,
tied
third with Ocon. So so your top three look like this. It's Lando on 283, very much running away with it now. Gasly just clipping along his heels, grabbing some points on 216, and Ocon and Piastri on 188 each. But then don't discount Albon on 175. He's not that far behind.
No, he's not that far behind.
Yeah, he's still in the mix.
They didn't have a great weekend.
Surprisingly still in the mix, just hanging around. So anyway, that's F1.5 for this week.
See, I can understand the McLaren's being gone into the distance a little bit because of their way their seasons turn around. But if you were to say that Albon would be competitive with the Alpine boys, that's a big tick on Albon, isn't it? And Williams, I guess. So that's quite a big call. Fantasy. This is interesting. I'm starting to show some interest in this fantasy business now.
I cannot believe
I'm wrapped.
So we're separated by a position in 10 points, and just again, I just want to remind people that I led for a fortnight,
and it was an annoying fortnight,
if not more. I was winning.
The podcast nearly shut down because I couldn't.
I know. I was nearly going to run it myself. Anyway, so thankfully I can't actually get back in to see my points from last week. Can you?
Yes, I can.
I can't see my individual driver points, but I can see my actual points for the weekend. So at the moment, I am 16th on 4,967.
You went Ferraris.
I did. I left the Ferraris.
So you were with Leclerc on 22.
Okay. I can't see this for some reason.
Carlos Sainz, negative 14.
Yeah, and see, I think that's unfair because he didn't start. There's not a DNF.
Oh, it's unfair, is it?
I'm not.
Oh, wow.
I'm not having it.
Norris on 82,
I'm
Piastri
not
on
having it.
56, and then Zhou on 19. So that part wasn't too bad. It's just the Ferrari. Your vision with Ferrari was very unfounded, and you stuck with it far too long.
I did, but that's what I've done all year. I stuck with my guns for a week too long than what I should have.
No, changing your original idea was wrong, and not knowing when to go to McLaren has what's done you undone. And then you got Red Bull 64 points and McLaren on an incredible 110 points. So McLaren's the place to be at the moment. 139 points. Oh no, now I've got to drive this, do I? My wonderful team scored.
Yeah, you can do it.
What a crew. Oh no, now I can't click on them. Now I'm in trouble. What's he would be saying? I told you the app's no good.
I've got it for you. So Verstappen 124, Lando 41, Oscar 56, Gasly 11, Albon 23. You had 110 with McLaren, and you had 64 for Red Bull. So you scored a massive 429 points.
Wow,
weekend, which is huge. So we're 10 points separated.
And I've got the team.
You know what my thought was? If I can do it, I just thought I'll just make your team now, just purely on the premise that you can't beat me, and I'll just have what you've got.
I'll just make a move.
Yeah,
I'll just make a move now that I'm good at this stuff.
I thought that too. Anyway, fantasy.
What's he? You want to know what's his team?
Yes, we haven't touched on Jace for a while.
Yeah, so he scored pretty much what you scored, and he's got an inactive Ricciardo on his team still.
Jesus, that's worse.
So 353 points.
Yep.
Max Ricciardo, inactive, so 0 points, just doesn't get anything, and that's been the case for a little while.
Yep.
Alonso on 25, Russell on 37, and Oscar Piastri on 56. Not a bad team, actually.
Yeah, well, no comment here this week.
Not a bad team.
Anyway, Fantasy is brought to you by Dr. Auto Art Chris, who, if you are looking for some of his art, I encourage you to get on his emailing list, because at the moment he's got a 10% off code. So if you are looking for a bit of art for the next few weeks, if you're looking for something for Christmas, if you're looking for something for end of year celebration, I'm sure there'll be a Max Championship print or something like that, and you can get in. Anyway, get in touch with Chris, but also get on his emailing list so you can find him on Instagram, Redbubble, Facebook, everywhere in your socials. But I encourage you to be part of his emailing list so you can take advantage of some of his promo codes, which he has a 10% off code at the moment. So I won't tell you what that is because I don't know if we have Chris's permission to do that. But yeah, get on his emailing list, and I'm sure you'll have access to that. So thanks to Chris, and top 3, as always, will take home prizes this year. Top 5 look like this. Sitting pretty in first place, It Protects My Head on 5,166. Team Q in second, 5,141. Cooking with Haas, 5,112. And Zanetta Team 1, 5,110. Coming up the rear in fifth is WW Jolien PD, 5,081. So it's pretty tight at the top. There's a little bit of a battle for first, and there's a battle for third too. So anyway, thank you to Chris. Thanks to everyone who's been part of Fantasy. Well, we've got 6 to go. 66 incredible teams. But yeah, thanks to everyone for being part of that. And thank you to Chris for all your great work. Quick hero of the hour.
Oh yeah,
off the back.
Love a hero of the hour.
Off the back of F1. Yeah, I'm starting to love it too. Is the weekend shot of Max getting out of his car with the firework perfectly positioned behind the helmet.
Nailed it.
Possibly one of the greatest, I want to say F1 images, but I'm going to say sporting images of all time.
Oh, that's a big call.
It's
a good one for this season.
Fabulous photo. It is something, like you saying you want something for the studio wall. Like
now I've got Dr. Auto
like
art.
There it is.
I've got Dr. Auto
You can have both. You can, imagine that. Just there. Fabulous photo.
I'm coming around to Max, but I'm not putting him on my wall.
Fabulous photo.
Yeah, it was a good photo, but yeah, I think you might be overcooking it. Just
not at all.
Just in the slightest. 5 races to go.
I thought we had 6.
No, so we're off to Austin in 2 weeks, and then we go to it's triple header.
No, but it's crap times.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Sorry, we got Vegas at Saturday. Yeah, 6 a.m.
No, Vegas isn't part of the triple header. So we go. Oh, 6 a.m. are the
I know,
bomb.
but then I like to do the post and think about it, but then I've got to go to work. I'm going to have to call in sick.
I'm in. And so, so we go to Austin, Mexico, and Brazil for a triple header. And I think Mexico and Austin are the 6 a.m.ers, and
Brazil's
hideous. No, it's not too bad. I don't think Brazil's too bad.
It's always
and then it is into Vegas, which I'm actually starting to get a bit excited about, mainly because of the timing of it all. So we can have a bit of a party around it.
Yep.
And then we finish in Abu Dhabi, which will be, it feels like after Vegas, Abu Dhabi just feels like it's just going to be a complete non-event.
As opposed to what?
Well, we've seen some, it's going to be even more of a non-event because of the hype around what Vegas is going to be doing. News. There is some big news getting around at the moment.
Oh, is there? Because I was sort of thinking we covered most of the news in the pod this week.
No, so let's talk Andretti racing.
Oh, Andretti, yeah. They're in.
So, just to catch some people up, FIA... And this, I want to get back to this point at some point. FIA and the Formula One motor racing group, whatever they're calling themselves now, put out an expression of interest from teams to join in Formula One because there is the capacity to have 12 teams on the grid. There's a capacity to have 12 teams on a grid. And so they put out a call saying expressions of interest if you would like to join the grid, and we can go through that. They went through that first process, and then they told them what the boundaries were going to be, what sorts of things they wanted to see from an application, and then they went through it. There was around 5 serious applications. I don't think one actually went to the application process, but it was going to be. In the end, we ended up with one being successful. That's the Andretti General Motors group.
Yep.
Passing through the FIA. They said that they were happy with what they were presenting and that they were ready for them to then go and speak with Formula One and all the interested parties. And then, since then, it's been a real cold shoulder being delivered to this successful application. Because, yes, they do then need to go and get permission from Formula One and from the other teams and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But there's been this really cold shoulder. And I think this process has been so poorly handled from go to woe, because there should be celebrations around this moment in terms of they're the ones that said, right, let's put out an expression of interest. If you're not interested in a team in general joining the grid, then why on earth did they ask for the expression of interest to happen originally?
Yes, it's fair.
It is a really weird situation which just bugs me so much. If you weren't interested in having a team on the grid, well, why on earth did they start this whole process? So it feels like, yes, they are going to go. It's going to be how much does it cost them? Because I can understand that there is a dilution of the winnings and all sorts of things like that. But there is greed involved, and there's teams that are crying poor, saying, "Oh my goodness, we've only just got back on our feet. Give us a few years to get things going." Well, you're going to have a few years to get things going because it's not coming in straight away. You can make it 2026. I know that they want to be 2025, but you can make it 2026, and you're going to have those few years to get it going. Those same teams have just applied to the Formula One Motor Group to say that they want to be able to spend more money on infrastructure because they can't catch up to the big teams. So they're wanting to spend big money anyway.
Yeah.
It is just a most horrible situation that's been so poorly handled by Formula One.
Yep.
The FIA is sort of pushed on as anyway, and it's just there's no communication going on. You can really smell the disdain between Formula One and the FIA.
Absolutely.
And then there's the teams. There's teams that are saying, "Oh, it seems like it's just going to be taking money away from us. We don't want that. We've brought in a cost cap for goodness sake because to allow this sort of thing to happen, it just is been an absolute shit show the whole way through."
Yep, I totally agree with you.
Where do you think it's going to end up?
Just in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, green light and on the grid.
I think it'll just be a matter of, right, we've got to come to an agreement how much this is going to cost to get in, because currently it's $200 million. And the idea is that they're going to be taking a share of the prize money, so there's going to be a dilution of prize money, so they're going to put in to make up for that for the next few years. Now, the suggestion is that teams are saying, right, we want $600 million to make up for that. I think that's just a greedy number.
Sure.
I think they'll find a number somewhere over $200 million. But I'm looking forward to seeing them on the grid. There's this excuse that keep on using, saying, "Oh, we want to have an engine manufacturer on the grid." We have so few engine manufacturers.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
That's right. Let's kick out half the teams then, because they're not even interested in going down that path.
Agree with you more. I thought James Vowes' comments were really short-sighted and really negative.
Well, it was
in terms of just wanting nothing more than stability. Like it's fine to want stability, but
not at the cost of growing the sport.
Yeah, like how many more years does he want stability until he's happy for Andretti to come in? Like
100%. I mean,
once upon a time, Williams didn't exist.
Williams hasn't offered anything to the sport.
They haven't. That's so spot on.
In a very long time, and I don't want Williams to go. I love Williams. I would be incredibly excited to see them back being properly competitive. I've been thrilled to see their season, but they haven't offered anything to this sport for a long, long time. And I understand that he's in charge of the payment for a lot of individuals, and he wants to be able to pay them a wage, and he should be able to do that with this going on around him, because this is a competition, this is a sport. It was so short-sighted. Williams is one of the teams that's applied to spend more money on infrastructure because they're technically not allowed to do this under the cost cap anymore. So they've applied, said, look, we can't catch up with the way things are. We want to spend more money. So they want to spend more money in the sport, but they don't want someone else to come in because they might take some of the money that they're going to be wanting to use. I mean, come on, just be good, just be better.
And if you want equity of money, how about you forfeit your historical payments that you get? Because I can guarantee they'd be very happy to not do that and to keep their historical payments that only they and Ferrari are receiving just for being in the sport for a long time. And for a team that has done nothing for a long time, they're quite happy to put their hand out and collect their historical payments. So you really got to think about your own backyard as well.
Haas has been critical of it. Once again, Haas is offering the grid nothing. And there's been a bit of talk saying, we've already got an American team. Haas is not an American team. They do nothing for the American market.
They have an American name, an American owner.
But they do nothing for that American market. They haven't developed a driver.
No.
They haven't developed a real cult following over there. They don't even market their cars to the American market.
When you turn up at Austin in 2 weeks' time, there's not a Haas grandstand. There's not an abundance of red, white, and black merchandise, and there's not a Kevin Magnussen grandstand or a Nico Hulkenberg fan club. I mean, fans are all for it, and that doesn't mean that it has to go ahead. However,
there is so much saying that it should go ahead, and the FIA, who's supposed to be that independent body, has said, yep, we're comfortable where it's at.
Yeah.
I really feel like Formula One needs to take a lead here and say, look, no, let's get it together. This is happening. Let's work out how we're going to make it happen the best so that they're competitive straight away. They're going to add to the sport, which they will be adding to the sport, because this will be a properly American team. Yeah. This will bring fans in straight away because of what their reputation brings. This will be something for the American audience to be proud of. Yeah. I know that NASCAR and IndyCar split in terms of alliances, but you're bringing in a huge market straight away with that split anyway. Yeah. It's something to be excited about. And I'm finding it more and more annoying hearing these teams come out crying poor. I agree. It's been tough. You might want some more time. Yeah. But there is more time to give. We're not in 2024. They are wanting to be in 2025, but they've said that, hey, if it has to be 2026, it has to be 2026. Yep. That's 2 whole years. Exactly. For you to get it together so that you're strong as possible, ready for them to come in.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, real pathetic on many, many people's parts. Is that it?
That's sort of it. I felt like we covered a lot of news in the app this week.
Yeah, all right. Wonderful.
Great.
All right, well, yes, thank you for bearing with us. Last race we were on before we could get into the news. This time we gave ourselves an extra day because we had a few little prior engagements. But there will be a fan frenzy coming out later on this week. But until then, and until we go to Austin, goodbye now.